Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. Welcome back to The Tom Woods Show. It's episode 2527 with our old friend Dominic Frisby, whom I have such difficulty introducing every time because he does so blankety blank much. He's an author, financial commentator, man with a six-pack now, according to his most recent newsletter. But he's a comedian, an entertainer, a lecturer. He's absolutely everything, and he's fantastic at all of it. And I'll have links to his Substack. You got to be reading Dom on a regular basis. And he doesn't overload you with email. He sends you just what you absolutely have to have. And I open every single thing Dom sends me. And I don't know if Substack lets you track that, but I have no fear of contradiction about that. You could go into your account, look me up, and I've opened every single thing. So anyway, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Tom, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And thanks for bigging me up.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. And if anything, I'm doing an inadequate job of introducing you. But let's talk about stuff going on over in your neck of the woods. I mean, there's some of the stuff is affecting everybody. In fact, why don't we start with that? Right now, now we're unfortunately recording this a couple of days before it goes live, but I rather doubt there will be major changes in that time. And not to mention, we still need to talk about what's just happened. And that is, it's like, now in the US, people are very sensitive about the use of the word bloodbath because Trump used it and because they interpret every single thing he says and does with an absurd lack of charity. They took him to mean that he meant that he's going to kill everybody if he wins or he doesn't win or something like that. But obviously that's not what he meant when he used that word. A bloodbath, as you know, by looking in the dictionary, can also refer to some type of terrible collapse. And we've seen big problems in the stock market and also with Bitcoin. Bitcoin dropping and has recovered a bit, but still a substantial decline. I'm still way ahead of where I was when I bought my Bitcoin, so it's not a catastrophe for me, and it's likely only temporary. But everybody's trying to explain what's going on and the unwinding of the carry trade or whatever the heck. What do you think is happening here, Dom? You have any idea?
Yeah, I do. I'm up in Edinburgh at the moment, Tom. I'm up at the Edinburgh Festival, and I'm doing a show up here. So most of my attention has been on the show. But this what is happening now has been something that's been about to happen for a long time. And we've been waiting a long time for it to happen. And it is exactly as you say, the unwinding of the yen carry trade. And what it is you probably knew this, the Japanese yen had got incredibly cheap, like historic levels of cheap. And the reason for that is the Japanese central bank has kept interest rates for so low for so long. People have been borrowing in yen and then using the money to speculate in other things, even just holding other currencies and pocketing the arbitrage difference. And this has been a trade that's been going on for years. And it's always like anyone who's tried to bet against this trade has lost their shirt. But we've all known it's going to unwind at some point. And then suddenly in the last week, it's unwound. And the Japanese stock market has plummeted and the yen currency has gone rising upwards. And so now there's this mad scramble to pay back all the yen that has been borrowed. And that means buying the yen and selling everything else. And so what we have is an old-fashioned liquidity crisis. Their debt is being paid down. And so you're seeing a correction in the Japanese stock markets around the world, the S&P 500, gold, commodities, oil, uranium has had a massive sell-off. And of course, Bitcoin and crypto has had a massive sell-off. So basically, everyone is covering their positions. And these panics, sometimes they morph into something bigger, and this has the potential to do that. But I think it's probably gonna, in a year or two's time, it'll look like a storm in a teacup. But at the moment, in real time, it's very, very painful. And, when you see the S&P 500 lose 2 or 3% on Friday, 2 or 3% on Thursday, another 2 or 3% today on Monday, that's pretty big. For the S&P 500, that's pretty significant.
So, there was a jobs report in the U.S. that was not as favorable as some people were expecting. So some people have also linked this to that.
Yeah, it is. There's the jobs report as well, and then there's also, war in the Middle East, that particular spectre that never goes away, and people seem to be taking it a bit more seriously this time. And sometimes it's all three of the things happening all at once. But in my opinion, the yen carry trade is the big one. But it kind of doesn't really matter what the reason is; it's happening.
Well, as somebody, like, for example, myself, I'm somebody who has no, quote, positions to cover. I don't have to scramble. Like, this doesn't affect me in any way. So for people like me, if you have a cash reserve, you're tempted to go in and just buy things. They're cheap. Let's go buy. But then you don't know how low they'll go. You never know. And this is not my game. Figuring out when the time is ideal to go in and, for example, buy more Bitcoin. I mean, that might make sense. But other things like, do I really need to figure out, where uranium's going to wind up? I mean, this is not anything I specialize in, so I don't want to stick my neck out. But in general,
Sure.
Do you, as Dominic Frisby, think, well, at a time like this, maybe I'll, buy some assets?
Well, I don't know how he does it, but Warren Buffett has sold down a lot of his positions in the last few months, selling into strength, and he has now got shed loads of cash, and he's going to buy assets at some point. He's probably already buying now. And yeah, when you get these sell-offs, they are opportunities, but they take a certain amount of courage because you're buying when something is falling. And for some reason, we always like to buy when things are going up, but often it's good to look at it, to treat it like a clothes sale or something. And that shirt that you'd normally pay, $100 for that shirt is going for $60 at the moment. So why not buy it now while it's $60? And, I'm sure if you have a bit of money spare, and it always pays to keep a bit of cash spare, if you bought a little bit of Bitcoin or a little bit of uranium or a little bit of oil or one of those things, or even a little bit of gold or silver, I'm sure, in a year's time, it'll be higher.
Now, and most people listening know that for a lot of people who are deeply committed to Bitcoin, they have a position on what should be done. And what should be done is you hold on to that Bitcoin. That's the answer. You just hold on. Through thick and thin, through ups and downs, you hold on to it. Now, I don't know that. I mean, I suppose some people, let's say, who buy into a fund, they basically just sit there and keep it there. So it's not like Bitcoin is completely unique in that. But I don't hear people who are in index funds or something talking all day long about how they're holding on to it. Whereas with Bitcoiners, you hear this a lot. Like when the price goes down, they say, if anything, I'm going to buy some more, but I am absolutely not going to join in the sell-off. What's your opinion about that?
Well, over the long term, buying and holding Bitcoin has been the best strategy to build wealth. And anyone who's ever sold Bitcoin, most of the time, they regret it. When we get one of these violent sell-offs at the moment, they don't regret it quite as much. But basically, anyone who ever sold Bitcoin below $50,000 regrets it. But that's $50,000 is the price now. And just holding, unless you're one of these geniuses that's able to trade the market, and there are people like that, but for the majority of people that don't track the price and they've got other stuff they want to do, just holding Bitcoin has proved the best strategy. And indeed, you could say the same about the NASDAQ or the S&P 500. Just holding it through thick and thin and letting it appreciate each year, it's a very, very hard strategy to beat. And I would recommend doing the same. You just take advantage of these sell-offs and accumulate a little bit more and maybe lighten up when it's strong. But I wouldn't get shaken out of your position. The long-term potential of Bitcoin is so enormous. Like if you sell your Bitcoin, you're selling a superior currency if you sell it for US dollars or pounds, and you're buying an inferior currency with it. And it might be a superior currency for the next month or two, but over the long term, Bitcoin is a technologically superior currency to fiat money. So you want to hold the strong money. You don't want to hold the weak money.
Hey, everybody, you and I are always talking about the need for parallel institutions, that the institutions we have all been taken over by evil people who are doing evil things. And so we need good institutions run by good people running parallel to these terrible ones. Well, we're starting to see that. So, for example, people more and more are seeing that Google and Microsoft and Apple and Zoom and the tech bros running big tech, they think your private data is their playground for their advertising networks and AI systems. Well, one way you can avoid all those things is not using their quote-unquote free tools in the first place. And here's your parallel institution, Federated Computer. Because Federated Computer, on the other hand, offers a full replacement for Google, Microsoft Office 365, Slack, Zoom, all the tools of big tech, but designed for people who care about privacy, don't want to be treated like cattle, and want a great price. Everything's encrypted end-to-end, fully backed up daily. We're talking about private email, file storage, group chat, WordPress, all the applications you need for your business or team, bundled into one easy monthly subscription that's 10 times less expensive than big tech offerings. You get unlimited users, fantastic personal customer support from actual human beings, and the assurance that your data is your data and not big tech's. Well, visit www.federated.computer for your free 30-day trial and use coupon code WOODS for 10% off your first 6 months. So how about that? A company that thinks its job is to provide you with services at a good price rather than spying on you or shutting you up or manipulating you. Take your first step along with many, many other happy Woods listeners towards digital freedom. Visit www.federated.computer today for your free 30-day trial and use coupon code WOODS to get 10% off your first 6 months. Well, not to mention, if you're above board and if you're selling any real quantity of it and you got it on like a Coinbase, you're gonna wind up paying, depending on your income, you're gonna wind up paying 20%. I mean, almost certainly if you're selling at any real quantity, then you're probably going to be at that 20% capital gains rate. And I just, in principle, I cannot take a 20% haircut on this thing. Not doing it.
That's the other problem. When you trade in and out, you incur a tax liability, which is...
Yeah. And so I'm hoping, it's another thing. It's interesting. I don't know that there's a UK analog to this, but in the US, we've seen RFK Jr. and Donald Trump laying out positions with regard to Bitcoin, well, cryptocurrency in general, but Bitcoin in particular, over the past week or so. And I think this is the first time that's ever happened, that a major party candidate has really made an attempt to reach that community. I mean, in the past, Trump has not been so friendly with Bitcoin, but you figure he doesn't know anything about it. He basically is going to adopt the position of whoever the last person he talked to about it was. And so maybe Vivek has been in his ear. I don't even know, but he feels like this is a constituency he ought to reach out to. So this is all very interesting. And they've had various proposals to try to entice people to vote for them because they want to pursue what's best for crypto. But to me, what's interesting is what's not on the table. I'd like to hear one of them say, I'll take the capital gains tax off it. I mean, that's the key thing. I mean, all these other things about I want to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, this is all nice window dressing, but how about just getting rid of that tax?
Well, it would be lovely, but I doubt that'll happen because the gains are so enormous, the government's going to want their little piece of the pie.
Yeah, that's true, but the hope is that eventually enough congressmen have Bitcoin in their portfolios that they start to feel the pinch. And they say, we don't want this stupid thing.
They'll be the Nancy Pelosi's of the Bitcoin world.
Yeah. So that's my hope. Is I want to advocate wide adoption by the U.S. Congress, and then we'll see.
Yeah, but it is really good that both RFK and Donald Trump are talking up Bitcoin. That's a really positive. Trump was down on it and when he was president, but that's a really positive development. And I don't know what Kamala's stance on it, but it's probably anti. But from where I'm looking over here on this side of the pond, it doesn't look like she's got a chance.
Well, I'll say, being over here, I would not rule her out. I mean, she does have huge, huge advantages. And she has the media will cover for all her stupidities. So, they're not asking her any questions. She's not taking any questions. They're not pointing out that she's obviously quickly abandoning her past positions, and no one's calling her out on it. If Trump did that, we'd never hear the end of it. So you can't rule out that they will engineer this so that the dum-dums will vote for her.
And they're definitely all the AI and all that. If everything I read online is really biased.
Yeah,
the search engines and all that.
The search engines are ridiculous. The other day, I think Elon even pointed this out, that you do a search for Trump rally and it comes up Kamala rally, and then incidentally mentions Trump. I mean, what the? I just love the way they position themselves as the champions of democracy, but they treat the proles and the peons, like the nobodies they think we are.
Yeah, it's really bad.
So, all right, let's talk about other things. Let's talk about something that is going on over there. Now, if I do an episode on something happening in a European country, it doesn't get that many downloads. Now, if I
won't talk about it.
but there are differences. Though there are episodes and there are episodes. Whereas if you had a UK podcast and somebody was talking about Trump versus Kamala, that'd probably do pretty well.
Yeah,
but
it does.
Americans are very insular. Because we have an attitude of superiority. So, like, why do we care what's going on in Romania? I mean, we don't know. Who cares? That's the attitude. But I think there is some interest in what's going on over there, because what's been interesting is to see the difference in the response to what's his name? Keir
Starmer.
I can't think of it. Starmer, right? Yeah, Keir Starmer. If you put, maybe you saw this on X, but if you put videos side by side of him talking about the reaction to George Floyd, and then what's happening in the UK right now, well, it's night and day. Oh, these people are concerned about justice, and everyone can understand that racism is a big problem in the United States. But then if people are demonstrating on behalf of something he doesn't approve of, it is, you are going to regret this, and there's not even an attempt to be even-handed. It's demonstrate all you like if you're advancing the interests of the regime, and even be violent, because you have every right to be unhappy about X or Y. But we'll tell you what you have a right to be unhappy about. I mean, it is just like out of it's like out of a Kafka novel or something. So, but you tell me. I mean, you're on the ground there. I mean, right now you're in Scotland, but I mean, you're over there more or less. What's really going on?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, so I wrote one of my comic songs about Keir Starmer, and he was something of a laughingstock coming up to the election, because the song was called Captain Flipflop, and it showed him flip-flopping on every single issue that there is. And so he says he's, everything. He's going to nationalize the trains. No, he isn't going to nationalize the trains. He's going to do this. No, he isn't going to do this. He's going to do this. No, he isn't going to do this. And he's so inconsistent. And what it is, it's a classic case of representative democracy. He's basically got the sort of left as a coalition, if you like. And he's got so many different people he has to appease that, that's why he keeps flip-flopping on everything. And he won that election. Amazingly, he actually got fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn got, Jeremy Corbyn was the sort of English Bernie Sanders, if you like.
Yeah.
At the previous election, Starmer got fewer votes, but he got an overwhelming majority because so few people came out and voted. So he's got this landslide majority, but it's underpinned by very few votes. If more people had come out and voted, he's quite easy to topple. And he had a sort of honeymoon period, which would normally last maybe a year or something. His has lasted about 2 weeks. And he's immediately, all leading up to the election, he said, no tax rises, no tax rises, no tax rises. And then immediately afterwards, there's just tax rise after tax rise. So, he's just lied. But you just come to expect it because politicians just lie. And in any case, there's been a brewing discontent in the UK for a long time. And in the same way that there's a brewing discontent in Europe and there's a brewing feeling of discontent in the States, it's the same discontent. And a lot of the discontent in the UK is to do with this incredible rise in immigration that we've seen. And we have so many people have come to this country, whether legally or illegally, and it's had all sorts of consequences. And it was never something we were given a vote over. You know, nobody ever said, we keep being told by successive leaderships, we're going to cap immigration, we're going to cap immigration. But it keeps going up. And last year, net immigration was 650,000 people, which in a population of 65 million is a lot. You know, it's 1% net immigration in 1 year. And you just go all around the country and just the demographics of the country are totally changing. And what's happening is people aren't having kids in the UK, partly because, well, all sorts of reasons, but the main one in my view is that nobody can afford a house. And until you can afford a house, people aren't starting families. So they're having smaller families later in life. And then everyone's going, nobody's starting a family. We need to import people from the third world to keep our population going up. And so there's this real tension about immigration. And then last week, this kid, I'm not sure if he was British born or British raised, but he was of Rwandan origin, African kid, went on a stabbing spree in a children's nursery group. So you got like little girls of the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that kind of little girl nursery group who had a dance group. And he went on a stabbing spree in there and killed 3 little girls and severely injured a load more people. And this triggered a wave of anger. And it was wrongly ascribed that this kid was a Muslim kid. And in fact, he wasn't Muslim. But so there was this sort of protesting outside mosques. But in any case, whether this kid was a Muslim or not, the bigger issue is that a lot of immigration to this country has come from the Muslim world, still remains. And so, but the way Starmer has dealt with it is instead of addressing the immigration issue and going, look, I understand why people are angry, he's just called everyone far right who's protested. And so it's raised this issue that we have in this country of what we call 2-tier policing, whereas the locals, the white locals are treated one way. So if the white locals, for example, go and riot, due to COVID lockdowns or something, they get treated one way by the police. Where if a load of kids go and riot because of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all that, they get treated another way. And you're like, why is everyone not being treated equally? And so because of this, Keir Starmer now has the nickname, as well as Captain Flipflop, he's now known as 2-tier Keir. So that, in a nutshell, is everything that's been going on.
Hey, everybody, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, Persist SEO. If you are getting buried by your competition online, then build your brand, your reputation, and your lead flow with digital marketing by Persist SEO. If you are a small local business trying to compete against large companies in the service industry, then increase your visibility with Persist SEO. Or what if you have low or no leads coming in on a consistent basis? Well, then website search engine and conversion optimization can help move the needle to a more prosperous business model for you. Are you tired of cold calling and networking, meeting places getting shut down? Use your website as a lead generation engine. Or what if you're not showing up for your services in the search engines? Well, get found with Persist SEO's expert search engine optimization. All you have to do is call 770-580-3736 or visit them at ineedseo.help for a free website audit and consultation. That's 770-580-3736 or ineedseo.help. So, but describe for me though, are these demonstrations or are they riots? Are they violent? If so, how much violence?
Well, I haven't been on any, so I can't. My fingers not. Can only report on what I've seen on Twitter. But there was a big protest last week organised by a guy called Tommy Robinson, who is either, depending on your worldview, either a hero or the worst sort of human being that ever lived. And on the whole, I think that rally passed fairly peacefully, but it was early in the day. But then since the stabbing, which was on Monday, a lot of the riots have got, violent. They set fire to a police station in Sunderland, for example. And, there's been a lot of fighting between the police and the rioters. But this is one of the issues. The police are quite happy to get into fights with what they call far-right protesters. And Keir Starmer's brought in all these laws that accelerate the prosecution of people caught protesting in the wrong way. And it's just another example of these two-tier things. And you're like, when Muslim people all go on a riot, they're not treated the same. And the reason they're not treated the same is the police are scared of being accused of being racist. But nevertheless, they're not treated the same. And that's why we have this, that's why we're in this sort of standoff, this two-tiered standoff. But it does feel, I have to say, it does feel like the white working class are second-class citizens in their own country. And really, people are not treated equally. And, there is positive discrimination, and there shouldn't be. Everyone says Britain's a racist country. Not everyone, a lot of people have accused Britain of being a racist country. But if anything, it's racist against white people. There's plenty of coloured people who would say, or people of colour or whatever, who would have a different view of that. But as I see it, and I think, the great words of Martin Luther King was, it's character is what matters, not the colour of your skin. But now it's identity is what matters, not character. And conduct doesn't seem to count anymore.
Well, the rules have been rigged against people that if you say anything, or you even if you say things that are obviously true, you get called these names and you're not allowed in polite society. So it's demoralizing that you can't even talk about what's going on. But on another level, I mean, I think James Delingpole has a different view of this. I think he thinks this whole thing's an op of some kind.
Yeah,
but
he has a different view of everything.
Everything. Because perhaps...
And the worst thing is about James Delingpole is you think he's nuts, and then about 5 years later, it turns out he was right.
Yeah, right. But I will say, even though his analysis of this particular thing, I might not be willing to go along with, nevertheless, I think his big picture would be the following. Look, let's suppose you wanted to destabilize a society. Let's come up with, what would your wish list of things be that you would try to implement? And so, you would wreck the financial system and spend like crazy. You would bring in incompatible cultures into your society and just see what happens there. And then that divides the public and it demoralizes the majority population, which is exactly what you want. You confuse gender roles to the point where we can't even talk about this without name calling. And we've got schools hiding information from parents about the kid thinking he's a girl or wanting to be called a girl or using such and such pronouns. I mean, you go down the list of things that, I don't think if you and I were planning to destabilize society, if you suggested the gender theory thing, I'd say, Dom, come on, let's be reasonable. We're not going to get everything. We're certainly not going to get your crazy gender thing. That's absolutely not happening. You're getting greedy now, Dom. You are overreaching. They got it all. And I know this could all have happened innocently. It could all have happened organically. Maybe the general public just came up with all these bright ideas. But you know what? The general public is not really good at coming up with bright ideas. You know what it is good at? Following along with what it's told to do by the elites. So it does kind of make you think, given that they did absolutely everything you would think they would do if their goal was to destabilize the society, can we rule out that that is their goal?
Well,
I'm always putting you on the spot.
I don't know who they are.
I don't either. But there's got to be somebody.
my ex-girlfriend always used to say this when I'd be spouting off about they're doing this, they're doing that, and she'd go, "Who are they? Who are they?" And I don't know, but I kind of think we're destroying ourselves, and I just think we've lost sight. I don't know if it's the decline of religion or what it is, but we have just lost sight of who we are, what we're about, what our purpose was. And it's worse in Europe and it's bad in America, but it's the whole, we just seem to have lost sight of everything. I don't know if we've been clouded with guilt or just judgment seems to have gone. And you're right. If you listed out all these things that we are doing to ourselves, it's like our enemies must be laughing. You know, Christianity and Islam have been at war for thousands of years, and we're literally opening the doors and bringing in millions of people who hate our culture. Now, strategically, there's total insanity to do that. You're bringing people into your country who hate you and who then want to subvert you and destroy you and change what you stand for. And so, like, what is that all about? And, you know, I'm up here in Edinburgh and I'm sharing a house with Simon Evans, who's sort of an intellectual in his late 50s, who's very much on the same page as us. But we both agree it's too late. It's too late to do anything about it. And like, by the time politics catches up with what needs to be done, we're going to be 20 years down the road, by which point it's game over. So it really is too late. I know that sounds grim, but it's just too late to solve all this. And we have, in the space of 15 or 20 years, completely changed the demographics of this country. And in changing the demographics of this country, we have changed the future identity of this country. And the Britain that you know in America, the Britain of you know, I don't know, Mary Poppins or what's that thing in Downton Abbey, and that's the sort of Britain that you think Britain is. That Britain disappeared years ago. But even the sort of stereotypical polite English gentleman, it's just gone. It's just not there anymore. You know, Keir Starmer's just done this thing where he's put 20% tax on school fees, which just means British public schools that produce those kind of stereotypical British people have just got even more unaffordable to the British middle class. And so the people who are going to these schools are all like the children of rich Chinese and rich Russians and all the rest of it, who all want the British education. So if you're looking for where the old Britain was, it's going to be in the future aristocracy of Russia and China. It's nuts.
Yeah,
I still don't think it's deliberate, Tom. I just think it's just like headless chickens running around, clueless.
I don't know, Dom. Because of course I can't pinpoint. I can't prove. I don't know who's doing what.
Do you know what it is? Happening. As a libertarian, this would not happen if government was at 10% or 15% of GDP. It just could not happen. But because government is at 50, at 60% of GDP, and government screws up everything it touches, and government is also controlled by this left-wing mentality that does not think the same way as us, and actually thinks all this destruction of our local cultures and traditions is a good thing because they're evil, bad, and wrong. You know, when that is controlling everything, that's why this is happening. But
only certain cultures are evil, bad, and wrong, though. You know, they're not forcing this on Nigeria. They're not forcing it on India.
Well, do you know more kids are born in Nigeria every year than are born in the whole of Europe? You know, nobody's forcing it in Nigeria because Nigerians come from Nigeria and they go, do you know what? I'd rather live in England.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, you could not trick the Chinese into thinking it would help us if we had a lot of, I mean, like, if I go to Japan, I'll just be honest with you. I mean, is it really like, am I a Nazi because when I go to Japan, I want to see Japanese people? Like, is there something wrong with that? Like, if I go to Japan, I don't want to be greeted by Scottish bagpipers. You know?
Yeah.
I like Scottish bagpipers. I have nothing against it. That's wonderful. That's not why I'm going to Tokyo. You know, and I just don't feel like I'm a Nazi for that. You know, I think I'm expressing the opinion of literally every single person who ever lived on this earth.
Well, I'm on the same page as you, but you know, even though Japan's currency is currently destroying the net worth of everyone around the world, but
true.
Yeah, I think they've got their immigration right. But they're the only first world country that's taken that line. You know, and I think it's happening in America as well. It's different in America because it's always been more of a mishmash of people. But you're sort of, you know, the America of of James Stewart and all that kind of New England sophistication that you would see in Hollywood movies, and that's gone.
Yeah. And you know what? Some of us kind of liked that America.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And
that was the America that made America great.
Yeah. And so I don't understand why I'm obligated to celebrate the loss of something like that. Like, why would I be? Why would I celebrate that? And its replacement by what? By nothing that's better. Nothing that's better. Now, I'm not saying there's no aspect of life that is better. I would rather go to the dentist today than then. I'm glad that I have internet access. I mean, I'm not saying everything is worse, but which America held out people I would like to model myself after? I mean, who today compels you to live your life a certain way? Nobody.
Well, I'm sure if I went through my Twitter feed, I'd find all sorts of good role models, but we're definitely not.
But they're not staring you in the face.
We're not as noble as we once were.
No.
And I think a lot of noble people, would be appalled by social media and so on, and celebrity and all that. So the noble ones are probably keeping their heads down and just getting on, with their lives, which is, I think, all you can do, really, and have lots of kids.
Yeah. Tell us, give us a minute to talk about your next book, and if you have a rough estimate of when it's going to be released.
Well, my next book is called The Secret History of Gold, and it's all about, I'll leave you to guess what it's all about.
Okay.
And I've just handed in the first draft like about a month ago. I'm waiting to hear back from the editor, and that will be out in a year's time. The lead times in publishing are so long, but that's just what it is. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And then I'm working on my songs all the time. What I really want to do is every time I put up a YouTube video of one of my songs, there's somebody will leave a message, come to Texas, come to Maryland, oh, we'd love you in Tennessee, come to Tennessee. So I'd love somehow to get out to the States and start doing some gigs out there, and me and my keyboard player, because I know you'd love my stuff.
Oh, look, I would absolutely be there. If I could get to one that was, reasonably located for me, I would. But also, I mean, I would like to get back over there where you are. And this is the Edinburgh Fringe thing?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to that. We were there last year or 2 years ago, about 2 weeks after it ended. And so there were these posters all over the city for these really interesting things to go to. And then you would check the date. I didn't know about the Fringe thing. You would check the date and it would always have just passed. And I was saying to Jenna, we just got here the worst possible time. And then we realized, well, of course they're all happening at the same time. It's a big festival. So I'd love to get over there, but I'd love to get to London again and actually, but time it so that I can see you.
What happens? We used to have this game show in the UK called Bullseye, and there were all these incredible prizes that you could win if you won the game show. But if you didn't win, the presenter would always go, here's what you could have won. And there'd be like a boat or a car that you could have won. And then you just have these absolutely mortified expressions of the contestants who hadn't won the boat or the car or whatever it was. And you going to Edinburgh and seeing all those posters is like, here's what you could have seen.
Exactly. Oh, this one's great. Now let's hope the date on this one. Of course, they're all over.
But yeah, the trade that's been working really well for me is that you book a trip to the UK, you book loads of tickets to go and see loads of musicals. You then don't come to the UK and give me your tickets. So I'm quite happy with that trade to continue.
I know,
lunch with you, to be honest.
Yeah, but don't get used to that. Now I actually go when I say I'm going to. I did have to cancel one, but boy, had we got some great tickets for some shows.
Oh my God.
And the thing is, by the way, that
you got me front row seats to see Les Mis, and it was the new production of Les Mis, and it just, in fact, funny enough, I took Simon, who I'm in this flat with, and it was just great. It was the best.
Oh, and the thing is that things like that are a reminder of the old society.
Mm-hmm.
That the just every aspect of these productions is a reminder of the old society, which is in part why I enjoyed them. Now, I also enjoyed, goofy productions like Back to the Future and stuff like that, American productions like that. But I
saw
also
that.
enjoy
It's amazing. I've never seen special effects like it.
No, neither have I. Especially the very end. I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, they fly the car around the audience. And you're like,
well, you gave it away. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I love, so there's still plenty of things that bring me over there. And I just, the dilemma I face as a traveler now is there are still so many places for me to explore, but yet there are still places that I've been already, but that I'd love to go back to, and I don't know how to figure out what to do. Like, I've never been to Ireland before. Should I go there before I go back to?
Yeah, Ireland's great.
Yeah, so I have to think about
Ireland's
things
great,
like
but
this.
go in the summer. It's cold in the winter.
Oh, okay, makes sense. But what's the summer like? I'm sick of these summers. Doggone it! Is it a mild summer?
I can. It's okay. So it's August in Edinburgh, and it's midsummer, and I'm just going to the window. Can you see the puddles on the ground?
I can.
It's pissing with rain outside.
Okay.
So that's a Scottish summer for you.
Okay. All right.
It was
I
baking
can live with
sunshine
that.
earlier today, but yeah. But it's mild. It's milder than London. An Irish summer is a few degrees cooler than a London summer.
Okay. Well, we were there last summer, and it didn't seem overwhelmingly oppressive or anything in London.
It can get hot, but it can be awful. You just never know.
Okay. But we've been to London in I'm sorry, I'm getting us completely off track. We've been there in fine. February, and it was cold, but I come from Florida, and it's so hot all the time. It's actually a relief to be cold sometimes.
Yeah. It very rarely, the hottest London will ever get using it very rarely goes much above 80. And in the summer, it'll be usually in the 70s. And then, in winter, it might get down to freezing. If it's really cold, it might get down. It might snow for a week, something like that. It's pretty mild compared to. It's not I think we're roughly the same longitude or latitude. I get muddled which is which, as say New York or something. In fact, I think we're a bit higher, but because of the Gulf Stream, our weather's much less extreme than New York. New York gets colder, but it also gets hotter.
Oh, well, yeah. Having lived there, I can attest to that. So I'll put all the Dominic Frisby links in the video description, but also on the show notes page. Most people listen on just audio, but so tomwoods.com/2527. But if you want to give out a link now audibly, that'd be great.
I would love it if your listeners and viewers would subscribe to my newsletter, my Substack, which is called The Flying Frisbee. And I write market commentary during the week, and I write more provocative thought post pieces at the weekend. I try and send out two emails a week, and I read them out so you can hear it and see if you prefer to hear rather than listen, and it will make your life better.
Well, that I can attest to that. It absolutely has in my case. So Dom Frisby, one of the great unsung heroes of today's world, it was a great pleasure to talk to you as always.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com, and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.